Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep into a story that, frankly, sounds impossible. It's like something straight out of a thriller. But our sources are confirming it actually happened. We're talking about the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro.
Right. By American Special Operations Forces, and not on some border, but in the absolute heart of Caracas.
In his own safe house.
It is, and I'm not exaggerating here, one of the most audacious operations in recent history. But the really shocking part isn't the audacity, it's the silence.
The silence.
This was not a firefight. This was an intelligence masterclass, and it all centered on one thing: betrayal.
Exactly. That's our mission today. We're trying to answer a simple but terrifying question. How did they pull this off? Because it wasn't about tanks. It wasn't about military might. It was about turning the very people sworn to protect him.
The men who decided to take American money instead.
Yeah. We've been looking at sources that detail how U.S. Special Forces got inside one of the most, paranoid security systems in the world.
And the answer is always the same. It's always the same. Inside help. The only way in was through his own people, his elite, hand-picked bodyguards.
So let's start with the timing, because the coordination here is, well, it's a masterpiece. Our sources give us a really precise window. Around 1:45 a.m. Caracas time, Maduro is at a secure safe house.
One of many. He was constantly rotating locations trying to avoid exactly this.
And that paranoia is what makes the next 15 minutes so brilliant. At 2 a.m. sharp, the city just erupts with noise.
The diversions.
Explosions, meant to draw every eye in the city away from the real target.
Absolutely. So you've got Maduro's military scrambling, right? They're responding to what look like major attacks on places like Fortuna, the La Cala airport, obvious high-value targets.
They're looking up, they're looking out.
They're looking everywhere except where they should be, because the real operation was small. It was quiet.
And while that's happening, a Delta Force team is already on the ground landing near the safe house. And this is where it just stops being a military story.
It becomes an infiltration story.
The reports are clear. The American commandos, they didn't have to fight their way in.
They walked in. Just think about that for a second. They literally walked in.
Which implies, the outer guards.
They were told to stand down. Security cameras, disabled, alarm systems, deactivated. The entire fortress was fatally compromised before the first American boot even hit the ground.
Because the battle was already won. Months earlier.
Exactly. It was an intelligence victory. They weren't walking into a combat zone. They were walking into a controlled environment. They used the security team's own procedures against them.
And the extraction itself. The speed was just clinical. The Delta Force team gets to his personal quarters, and there's almost no one left.
Just 2 bodyguards. And according to the reports, they saw what was happening and immediately surrendered.
No shots fired.
Not a single one. That's the final proof of just how deep the penetration was.
But the number that really stands out in the logs is the time.
12 minutes.
12 minutes.
From landing to takeoff. The entire extraction took less than 12 minutes.
That's astonishing. That's faster than ordering a pizza.
It had to be. That speed was crucial. It meant that by the time his defense minister, Vladimir Lopez, even knew the president was missing,
they were already gone.
Maduro and his wife were already on a U.S. aircraft, already crossing into international airspace.
So there was no chance for a response. The power vacuum was instant.
Exactly. No time for loyalists to mount a rescue, no time for the regime to even figure out what had happened. By the time they started looking, he wasn't there anymore.
So if the capture took 12 minutes, the planning took over a year. Let's get into the how? How did they flip these guys? These are supposed to be the most loyal men in the country.
Well, this is where the real deep dive begins. The operation, run by the CIA and DIA, started systematically mapping Maduro's security about a year before. And they weren't looking for tech gaps. They were looking for human ones.
And the biggest vulnerability they found?
The economy. The fundamental flaw in the whole system. These guards, as elite as they were facing the same devastating collapse as everyone else. They were paid in bolivars.
And just to be clear, for anyone listening, when we say paid in bolivars, we mean their salaries were worthless. You'd need a suitcase to carry it, and it still wouldn't buy a week's worth of food.
That's the pressure point. You're standing next to the president, watching his inner circle fly to Cuba for, basic medical care, living in luxury.
While your own family can't get antibiotics.
Exactly. That contradiction, that hypocrisy, it creates this deep, corrosive resentment.
So the loyalty that was bought with position and status just starts to crumble under that pressure.
And U.S. intelligence zeroed in on 3 individuals who perfectly represented that decay.
Okay, let's break them down.
The first profile is Just. It's heartbreaking. A senior guy more than 6 years on the detail, and his weak point was his daughter. She was sick, and she needed treatment that just wasn't available in Venezuela.
Wow. So he's protecting the one man who has access to everything while his own child is suffering.
It's an impossible position, right? His vulnerability wasn't greed, it was love.
Mm-hmm.
The second target was totally different. Younger guy, very ambitious.
Oh.
His problem was professional. He was good at his job, maybe the best. But he saw promotions going to less competent guys purely because of political loyalty.
So merit meant nothing. Why be loyal to a system like that?
It just becomes a cynical game.
Hmm.
And the third profile is maybe the most interesting, a real veteran, someone who had served under Hugo Chavez.
His old guard loyalists.
Right. And he saw Maduro as a usurper, someone who had completely destroyed Chavez's vision and was just, looting the country for himself.
So you have the desperate father, the frustrated professional, and the betrayed idealist.
The perfect trifecta. And contacting them was incredibly delicate. It was all done through intermediaries, former colleagues who'd already defected, family members abroad, just testing the waters.
And the offers they made, they were about more than just money.
Oh, much more. They offered a future. The cash was huge, don't get me wrong, sources say between $10 and $20 million per person. But that was just part of it.
The real offer was escape, a secure life for their families, which is priceless in a failed state.
And they tailored it. The guard with the sick daughter, they guaranteed immediate medical evacuation to a top U.S. hospital, all expenses covered for life.
Wow.
The ambitious guy, American citizenship, a new identity, a clean start. And for the Chavez loyalist, they offered peace, the chance to remove the man he saw as a tyrant.
But here's the critical move, the thing that I think locked it all in. The bodyguards needed proof that this was real.
So the Americans gave them the ultimate guarantee. They extracted the families first.
I mean, how did they pull that off without setting off every alarm in Caracas?
With incredible operational security. Some families left on commercial flights using fake documents. Others were smuggled across the border into Colombia. The point is, their wives and children were safe in undisclosed locations before the operation was even given a green light.
So when the time came, the bodyguards weren't taking a risk.
Not on their families, no. The thing they valued most was already safe. The money was just waiting. It wasn't about trust anymore, it was a done deal.
Once they had those first three, I assume the network grew from there.
They helped identify others. The circle of compromised guards eventually grew to at least 8 members of the detail.
And not everyone had the same role.
Right. Some were active, feeding intel, others were passive, just agreeing to look the other way. And a few were just, conveniently assigned to be somewhere else that night.
The sources say there were a few false starts, right? Maduro changing his schedule at the last minute.
Several times. They had to be patient, wait for the perfect moment. And the breakthrough came when one of their key assets, one of the compromised guards, was assigned overnight duty at the safe house.
The linchpin.
He was the linchpin. He gave them real-time updates. Location, mood, and critically, who else was on the security roster that night. He confirmed there would be no loyal wildcards.
So when the final call was made, the Delta team knew exactly what they were walking into.
Maduro was asleep. He woke up to find American special forces in his bedroom. And the real shock, I imagine, was seeing his own bodyguards just standing there, not moving a muscle.
And his reaction. The reports conflict a little.
They do. Some say he just went quiet, that he understood immediately he'd been completely betrayed. Others claim he tried to appeal to them, invoking their duty, their oaths.
And it had no effect.
Zero. These men had already traded that loyalty for their families' lives and $10 million.
The extraction, as we said, was fast. He and his wife were flex-cuffed, hooded, and taken to the helicopters, airborne and gone.
And you have to understand the depth of this. These weren't peripheral figures. These were the men who stood next to him every single day. They knew his routines, his secrets, his fears. For that entire circle to turn, it speaks to a complete erosion of the regime.
It really gets to the core weakness of authoritarianism, doesn't it? His security failed not because of some superweapon, but because the system itself was hollow.
Right. When loyalty is just bought with fear and money, it evaporates the second a better offer comes along.
These men made a rational choice.
A completely rational calculation. They saw the writing on the wall, the regime was collapsing, they chose survival, they chose prosperity for their families over going down with a sinking ship.
And for them, it paid off. They were extracted, they're being debriefed, and they'll get new lives, new identities, and those millions of dollars.
For the intelligence community, this is going to be studied for decades. A masterclass in psychological operations. The lesson is you don't always need an invasion. Sometimes you just need the right people, the right leverage, and the patience to wait for the right moment.
It's just, the irony is so deep. Maduro survived coups, assassination attempts, international sanctions,
Right.
only to be undone by the men he paid to take a bullet for him.
His greatest vulnerability was never an external enemy. It was the weakness of the system he built around himself.
And that leaves us with the final question, the one for you to really think about after this deep dive. This operation sends a potent, maybe terrifying, message to other authoritarian leaders. If money and family safety can turn your most trusted bodyguards, what does that imply about your own stability? What's the real price of loyalty when the system itself is crumbling? That's the deep dive you have to continue.